This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on various meetings on the sidelines of G-20. The participants are Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Mukesh Kaushik, journalist.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Buenos Aires for 2 days and he attended G20 meetings. Other than that, in the sidelines, he had very important meetings with various heads of state in bilateral format, in trilateral format, and in BRICS format, RIC format, and new format was added to this, was J format, which was given by India itself. So, Janharji, how do you see all these bilaterals and trilaterals and other format meetings panning out in this G20 meetings?
If you look at different international conferences, meetings and summits, then it has become clear that it also becomes a forum for having meetings on the sidelines of these conferences, because whatever is discussed in the formal sessions, in the plenary session, in the inaugural session, they are important. Like here also, the theme was building consensus for fair and sustainable development. But on the sidelines, the Prime Minister, as you said very rightly, had a large number of meetings in different formats. And I think some of the important ones, of course, springs at you right at the beginning is the meeting between the leaders of America, Japan and India, which Prime Minister Modi termed it as J, which means success. And this was the first time ever that these three leaders have met in this format. It was extremely significant because all these three countries are strategic partners of each other. They are great in terms of cooperation and in terms of collaboration. There's a very wide area of bilateral working together. As President Trump said at this meeting, that America's relations with India are the best that they have ever been, and America's relations with Japan also are the best that they have ever been. And I think the same thing we can say for India also. So there were a number of issues, and one of the most important, significant issues that was discussed was of the Indo-Pacific, because you would recall that the whole concept and notion of Indo-Pacific is of recent origin. Of course, it was initially introduced about 10 years ago, but last year when President Trump came to this region, to Asia, then he had started using the word Indo-Pacific in place of Asia-Pacific. And that has got a lot of traction, and I think it is because they wanted the international community, America and all the other countries who are seeing the expansionist policies of China and increased assertiveness of China in the region.
And this important player must be closely watching this meeting?
They would be. But let me just complete this. Indo-Pacific had become very, very significant and very, very important. And so it was important for these three countries to get together and, so to say, put their act together. But still they have said that it is Indo-Pacific is not an initiative that is directed against any other country. So this message is very important, and that's why they've used the words that it should be free, it should be open, it should be inclusive, and it should be a rules-based order. That means international, like the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, that all should be respected. And as Prime Minister Modi said, the intention was there should be freedom of navigation, that there should be connectivity, that there should be maritime security, that there should be respect for international law. So all that. To come to the question that you have posed, that this player must be watching, of course they would be watching. Although China has tried at least visibly not to give any great importance to the Quad. But here, as far as it knows that what the discussions are, they could have implications and repercussions for China. So it would be watching, but I don't think there was any comment emanating out of any of these three leaders which should give any cause for concern to China.
After this meeting, Foreign Secretary Vijay Gokhale had a briefing and he said that President Trump and Prime Minister Abe complimented Prime Minister for the reforms and the development work that he has done, and the three leaders exchanged views on Indo-Pacific. They also agreed on a free, open, inclusive and rule-based order is essential for the region. But my question is that whether China would accept the message of this meeting was this which was narrated in this briefing.
I should think so, because Prime Minister Modi has also met Mr. Xi Jinping in three different formats in G20. Over the 48 hours that he was there, in addition to being in the same room for all the plenaries and all the other sessions, he met him in the RIC format, the first after 12 years. The last one had taken place in 2006 in St. Petersburg. Then he met him on a bilateral format in which they had an opportunity to discuss bilateral, regional, global issues. They discussed Afghanistan, they discussed terrorism and all these other things. He met also in the BRICS format, in which they discussed a wide variety of issues, including things like how the countries should act against economic offenders, how the countries should act against tax evaders, and so many other things. So the point here is that although there might have been one meeting with Japan and American leaders, but here there have been 3 interactions, so I'm sure this would be one meeting. Should not be a cause for concern, because I'm sure Prime Minister in all these other meetings would have reiterated that India is looking to promote peace and security and prosperity in the region and in the world.
Heads of meeting of BRICS leaders have become very important in this G20 format, and as Vijay Gokhale said that during these meetings all the 5 leaders made important statements and there was a complete unanimity of views both on international political situation and international economic situation. They all agreed that international and multilateral training institutions and process must be supported, they must be reformed, there must be an avoidance of unilateralism, that protectionism needs to be countered. Here, I would like to know the nuances of this word protectionism. Is it coming back into the discourse of international order?
No, it has come back in a very big way. We need to realize that since 2008, countries have been getting more and more protectionist, because if internal economies are suffering, then you will try to put tariff barriers and non-tariff walls around you so that you can protect your markets. But I think when you spoke about the nuances of this formulation, I think it particularly refers to some of the actions that Mr. Trump has been taking in terms of what he has put in as America First after he came in. And over the last several months, beginning of this year, he has put penalty tariffs on imports of steel, on imports of aluminium. He has launched a so-called trade war against China, and in which he has already imposed penalty tariffs of 25% on $50 billion worth of goods, 10% on $200 billion worth of goods, and also threatened that on this $200 billion that penalty tariffs were imposed in September, they would increase to 25% from 1st January. But then after the dinner meeting between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump last evening, they've said that they will put a pause to this increase of tariff for 90 days and wait for China to take decisive action. So I think the reference here is more to the actions that Mr. Trump has taken in the international trading economic arena, also as far as WTO is concerned, because he has been sending out messages and signals that he wants changes in WTO, to which our Prime Minister has said that we would support what he calls the reformed multilateralism. It doesn't pay anything, it doesn't yield to any positive results by pointing fingers at different countries. But we need to see what are the problems, what are the issues, and we need to try to get together to resolve them. And also Mr. Trump last year, he withdrew from the climate change accord. That was another hot issue that was discussed and debated there. So this is a reference to all this, and I think all these countries are really on the same page as far as all these tense issues are concerned.
As you mentioned, apart from BRICS and RSC format, Prime Minister Modi also met separately with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and it was 4th meeting between the two leaders. Do you think that long shadow of Doklam and various other issues which were denting Indo-China relations are little over?
No, I will not say that it is over. I will say that it is a pause that has been put. Both the countries are trying very hard that their relations continue to be normal, continue to be as productive as possible. And I think Wuhan, in that sense, the 2 days that both the leaders spent in April this year, they were productive, because both the leaders then decided that they will send out strategic communications to their own officials, and also particularly to the militaries and to the defense personnel, to make sure that there is peace and tranquility on the border, and that unnecessarily there are no issues that come up. Recently we've had the visit of Chinese Defense Minister to India. We've had the meeting of the special representatives. In December we will have the visit of the Chinese Foreign Minister to India. So I think both the countries are making efforts that temperatures should stay under control, they should be cool, and whatever they can try to do together to strengthen relations, it should be done. And this is what was mentioned also, that there has been greater exports from India to China, so maybe the trade deficit would come down a little bit. And in that context, rice was mentioned, sugar was mentioned by Xi Jinping, that more imports have taken place. And also in pharmaceuticals, that soya meal also has possibilities. And Mr. Xi Jinping also requested Prime Minister Modi that maybe more agricultural products could be imported by India from China. So I think these conversations send out a very good message to the people, to the officials, to the other ministers and leaders, that we need to see what are the opportunities for cooperating and collaborating and take them forward.
So on the margins, there was one more important meeting. Prime Minister Modi also met German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Would you tell us something about this meeting?
You see, Angela Merkel she was the one who hosted the last G-20 summit in Hamburg last year in July. And Germany is a very important partner, a very important economic partner of India. So I'm sure discussions would have been held as to how to take this relationship forward. There is, particularly in the area of skill development, I know that Germany has made very many advances, and India is very keen to learn from the German experience. And this is one of the great advantages of these meetings, that we have to share the best practices of the different countries, share the experiences of the different countries, and that would be what Germany can contribute to India's growth, whether India's flagship programs of Make in India, of Digital India. These are all areas where Germany has great strength. So how can the two countries going forward continue and take the relationship, make it stronger?
Germany and other European nations took a very united approach so far as climate change is concerned, other issues are concerned, but Team Trump was isolated somehow in G20.
Yes, that's right. I think since last June, when Mr. Trump announced that he is going to withdraw from the Paris Accord in 2015, the agreement that had been reached, I think that has created quite unease and furor throughout the world. And here also we could see that there was unitedness on one side, all the countries. If you remember last year when Mr. Trump was announcing his withdrawal from the Paris Accord, Prime Minister Modi was in St. Petersburg. He was the chief guest at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. And just after that, he had announced that whatever the other countries might do, India will abide by its commitments as far as the Paris Accord is concerned. And immediately after that, he went to Paris with Mr. Macron, and then he sort of had meetings there also. India has also launched the International Solar Alliance, also in terms of meeting its commitments and bringing other countries on board as far as renewable energy is concerned. So you are right, but climate change, that there was a division between all the countries, Trump on one side, America on one side, and all the others. But it is also a fact that no solution could be found on this issue.
And finally, there was a pleasant news for India that India would be hosting next G-Summit meeting in 2022, when we'll be celebrating 75th year of our independence. Ashok Sejanhaji, you came to our studio to talk about G20 Summit and its various bilateral meetings. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on various meetings on the sidelines of G20. The participants were Ashok Sajjanhar, former diplomat, and Mukesh Kaushik, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.nic.in.